Hey guys, and welcome back to another Rant video. So, I've been working on some stuff to do with Minicons recently, and that's got me looking into Minicons a lot more. And I've just come to realize that since they came out, over the years have just started to make less and less sense. Minicons are probably my favourite gimmick in all Transformers. I like most gimmicks that they've had over the years, but Minicons I think, at the time they were just the best one, and since then I don't think we've had anything surpass it. But really, like, modern day, they don't have gimmicks the way they used to. Like, with modern minicons, every time they show up, they do something different. They've slowly pretty much just became Micromasters, Headmasters, Target Masters. All of those things that used to be a unique thing is now just a minicon. And I don't like that. I prefer when all the different master stuff's unique. Like, minicons have just taken over all of that. And I think we need minicons to go back to, like, cool, unique gimmicks that they used to have. So, I'm going to look through just a lot of different minicon stuff, and we'll just go through there. So, Armada got it right. The entire Unicron trilogy got it right. And Armada, they were created by Unicron, which I could take or leave, but it's still a cool, like, unique backstory lore-wise for them. They're pretty much just small Transformers. Their entire purpose is like connecting to a larger Cybertronian, and giving them a little power boost, power wincing. They have a good unique role, story-wise, so they're not just Micromasters, and they're different from any gimmick we've had before. We've never had, like, a little guy who connects on and does something cool. Headmasters is similar, but it's not like a unique little transformer you get. It's just a little guy that turns into a head. I like Headmasters, but Minicons were way cooler than that, and Minicons had something unique. And since then, they've all just became different masters. So, like, I think a lot of people know this, but just for anybody who doesn't, like, masters are pretty much just Hasbro's way of doing different kind of gimmicks back in the 80s. So we had Headmasters, who became a Transformer's head. Target Masters became a weapon. Micromasters were tiny Transformers who turned into regular vehicles. Power Masters became an engine. In Japan, we had Brain Masters, and they became the face of a Transformer. I think they also came out in Europe. And then we also had Action Masters, who are really just not similar at all to the others. They just can't transform. That's the whole thing. Yeah, so we have a lot of other, like, little gimmick subgroups, but these are, like, the main ones that come back all the time. The Target Masters came back in Siege as Battle Masters, where they could now turn into melee weapons, and that was also run in G1, because the Action Masters had little partners. I don't know if they were ever officially called Target Masters, but they were pretty much just Target Masters, and sometimes they could turn into a melee weapon as well. In Siege, they had all that come back, and Battle Masters were just Target Masters, and also the ones that could turn into weapons. It was just a thing for all of them that makes sense for the same name. Siege also brought back Micromasters, and they were also kind of Target Masters, because they could, like, combine together and make a really bad looking gun, but that's really just phoned in. I don't think many of them, apart from having little handles, they don't really have any unique parts for that. Yeah, so Armada, the Minicons stood out a lot. They had some unique stuff to them, but they still did sort of steal some other ideas, but it wasn't like a big thing. It wasn't like every Minicon became a Headmaster. It wasn't every Minicon could turn into a gun. You had, off the top of my head, maybe two unique Minicon molds that could turn into a gun. It might even be one, and I'm pretty sure it was exclusive to Japan. That they could turn into a gun. That was cool. You had a couple Minicons that could turn into a head. That's fine as well. That's not like a whole. It's not a line-wide gimmick. That's something that we can just have around for, like, a one-off as a little throwback. That's cool. But when Armada ended, I think it started to really go downhill. Modern toys have stopped having, like, big built-in gimmicks like that. Even with, like, stuff like Cyberworld, they don't have like some of the old cool gimmicks used to have. You don't have anything on the line, or anything on, like, the level of a Minicon or a Cyberkey. You don't get anything like that anymore. So they've kind of, like, lost the main selling point which was it's a little collectible guy that can also do shit to your bigger toy. We've lost that over the years, and Minicons have just lost their whole identity. So in classics, this was what the first thing after Armada, what to really do stuff with Minicons, and they were pretty much just Micromasters. They were instead of being created by Unicron, they were created by the last Autobot. But from what I see, they've also lost the ability to power up bots, which makes sense because in classics they didn't have any like power links gimmicks. Classics just kind of threw in Minicons because it was a price point. There was a price point for selling a free pack of Minicons, and they just wanted to fill that out. That's fair, I can see it. Like, the Unicron trilogy's still going at that point. We're still getting new ones. But, and then in the Japanese G1 continuity, they were just Micromasters. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts, they were just Micromasters with a different name. If I remember right, it's like, the Micromasters, like, left, whatever. It was either Earth or Cybertron. And the Minicons stayed there and just changed their name to Minicons. And then, for all I love IDW, they've also not done it with Minicons. They made it even more confusing, because there's two types of Minicons in IDW. There's the Ammonites, which are a completely different alien species, and from what I've read on TF Wiki, have nothing to do with anything to do with Transformers. They're just a different species of tiny transforming robots that also get called Minicons sometimes. Okay, that's fine. I guess it's alright for them just to have them around. They didn't do much with those guys. It was mostly just there because it was one generation's toy. But then they introduced the other Minicons, which are just... we all we saw was Neko because the whole planet was destroyed. And then they were pretty much just a Micromaster. Neko didn't do anything interesting. She was just like a tiny transformer turned into a tiny vehicle. That's a Micromaster again. And yeah, Neko was partly based on deployers, but we'll get to them later. I like the movies. But, like, they had Minicons in the movies. You'd be hard-pressed to notice it, because the only ones people know about is Frenzy and... the little guy, I forget his name. Scalpel. That's the only ones you'd be able to name out of the movies. Wait. Frenzy turns into a CD player. I like that. Same with Scalpel. He turns into a tattoo gun. I think he turned into a... he turned into something else for the toy. But I like that. That's unique. If Minicons are gonna be something unique again, maybe if they turned into little inanimate objects, that could be cool. We had the Real Gear Robo that came out with Real Gear Robots, whatever they were. They turned into little household objects in the movies as well. They were cool. Didn't really have any media, but they were still cool to have. You got a little watch guy. That's the cool thing for Minicons. Have them be like a roleplay toy where it's life-sized. But then they just kind of kept stuff going with it. Chopster is a target master. He turns into a gun and an axe. So he would... Modern, he'd be a battle master, because but that wasn't a thing at the time, so we'll let that slide. But he's just a target master, but they called him a Minicon. And then there was Armada recolors, because they brought back Red Alert and recolored him. And with that, they brought back Long Arm. Did they explain Long Arm? Not really. He's just there. Why is there a little Minicon who can give somebody an upgrade in the movies, while all the other Minicons can't? They just needed to fill out the toy line. The movie toys were selling like hotcakes, and they just needed new ones out. There we go. We don't really count them, but it so confuses things. And Power Core Combiners, that's where Chopster's from. I would have left him out, but he showed up in some Bayverse media. But that's the same for most of them in Power Core Combiners. They're pretty much just target masters. They had still, in the lore, the ability to power up larger bots. But that doesn't do anything when you're selling this to an 8-year-old. When I was a kid when Power Core Combiners came out. I liked them. I don't know. I know people aren't hot on them now. I still like them. I think they're cool. But I didn't read the back of the box and go, oh, if I connect the Minicon to Huffer, he can run faster and gets a little bit stronger. I'm 8. I'm not gonna remember that unless the toy does something. When I checked out like Armada toys, they stick with you because even if you're a kid, you can plug something in. You go, wow, I plugged this in, and now Hotshot's got a giant cannon. That's something that sticks with you. You're not gonna when you think of Power Core Combiners. The Minicons a catchy name, but you're going to see it later, and it's just going to create confusion with Target Masters. That's what happened with me when I started getting back into Transformers when I was a bit older. I was looking at it, I was going, wow, I know these guys, these are Minicons, but no. Everything's modern day's a Minicon when it should just be whatever they're meant to be. Yeah, so they're just Target Masters. Animated, they were prison guards, which... they have cute designs, I like them. They don't transform. That's an Action Master. It's a Transformer that doesn't transform. That's an Action Master. They were tiny. I'll grant them that. They were tiny. And they didn't really do much with them. So I'm reaching on this one. I'll admit that. I'm reaching. But it's still just something else they've redone. And then we get to the thing that made me make this entire video, is the aligned continuity. I like the aligned continuity. I grew up with the movies, animated, and Prime. That was the main 3 things I watched. I hate the Minicons now I went back and looked at it. I like them in a bubble. If we're just looking at those Minicons, that's cool. But when I started looking at the Minicons as a whole, I don't like these ones anymore. So, in the War for Cybertron, games, Follow Cybertron, War for Cybertron, up those two, Soundwave has his cassettes. That's fine. They work similar to Bayverse Frenzy. They turn into inanimate objects. They turn into little data slugs. That's cool. I'm fine with that. They're still sticking to it, and really they're just calling them Minicons for branding. I don't really see them as Minicons at Soundwave's cassettes. Every time I've seen them depicted before that, they're, apart from Laserbeak and Cybertron, they're really just like tiny Transformers. They've never been labeled as Minicons or Micromasters or anything like that. And then we get over to Prime, which only brought back Laserbeak and the cartoon. They brought back Ravage and Rumble and Frenzy, where it just turns out normal cars. But we'll just look at Laserbeak, because he drives me mad. He's just a drone. I don't think he thinks. And Primey doesn't think. In RID, maybe he learns to think. In my Rescue Bots Academy, he's just normal Laserbeak. Is he a Minicon? They call him a Minicon. He's identified as a Minicon. He's grouped in with the Minicons. I swear this guy was sentient and when he showed up in the games. Granted, the games, they just got kind of lumped in. They just got told, you guys are part of this now. They didn't plan for it. The Prime guys, the Prime team, they didn't plan for the games being part of it. So I'll let that go, but they call him a Minicon. He's identified as a Minicon. He's a drone, so... And this is a Minicon a drone? Is a Minicon just a tiny Transformer? A Minicon's being a tiny Transformer, that makes sense, but then what size do you what size do you go with? How small do you gotta be to be a Minicon? And what makes a Micromaster unique from a Minicon? It's Bumblebee's small, like G1 Bumblebee. If we go off the idea that a small Transformer is just considered a Minicon as a group, does that mean that the Minibots are Minicons? I hope not. The Minibots are just, sometimes they're small, sometimes they're big. Minicons, it just get used to. I'm having a stroke. It gets used way too much. And then don't get me started on Arms Micron, because they turn into weapons again. So they're just Target Masters. But they're also animals? There's a little elephant dude who turns into like a mace, I think. I think he's a mace, or he's a grenade launcher. It's a little elephant that turns into a grenade launcher. There's there's knockoff Laserbeak who turns into a sword. What? They're animals like Soundwave's, like Ravage, Laserbeak, Ratbat, like Soundwave's cassettes. But they also turn into weapons, which is a Micromaster, not a Micromaster, it's an Action Master, like Target Master thing. A little Action Master partner. But they're also technically Minicons, because the Arms Micron are grouped in with Minicons. We never really got them over here, but I'm pretty sure they're Minicons. From everything I've seen, they're Minicons. What the? I don't even know. It's just, at this point, what is the difference between, like, any of these groups? A Minicon, so far, has been, a little bit has been a Tad Master. A lot of the time, they've came back as knockoff Target Masters. A lot of the time, they've just been Micro Masters. Sometimes they've just been Micro Masters with a different name. Like, Minicons are just Micro Masters, but we're changing our name because we're on a different planet. And then we get to RID 15, where somehow it gets worse, because they had the deployers. This was interesting. This could have been a unique thing for Minicons. But they were never really marketed as them. They were very specifically marketed as deployers. So whenever you think of them as deployers, where you got them turning into buzzsaws and torpedoes. Why torpedoes? They never fight underwater. I can remember maybe 2 underwater things in RID. Anytime we've seen the little torpedo guys, I'm pretty sure they're getting launched. Like, they're getting launched like missiles. Just call them missiles. But deployers actually do feel unique, and they could have been a good new identity for Minicons. They get, like, launched out like weapons. They're not like Target Masters who turn into a weapon and shoot. Minicons are the weapons. They get launched like little chainsaws. But then they introduced more Minicons. They made little melee weapon Minicons. You got little animals that turn into axes and shit. That's Arms Micron again, which I've seen being treated as separate, but they're pretty much just Target Masters. I don't want to rant for too much longer on this, but I don't want this to sound like I hate Minicons. I love Minicons. I love the little guys. I just wish we knew what they were supposed to be now. Ever since Armada, they've been Micro Masters, Target Masters, Head Masters. I think they've even had them be Power Masters. We've even had them be Action Masters. We've had Minicons that just don't transform. They were in RID as well. Fix It and all heads little dudes. I don't think they transform into toys. I don't think we ever see them transform in the show. And when they transform in toy-wise, I'm pretty sure they're just turning like an old drill weapon thing. So that's just a Target Master again. Another thing with RID is that's where we got Battle Masters introduced. So the Minicons that turn into weapons are simultaneously Minicons and Battle Masters. So now they're both. So is a Minicon just a small transformer? That's what it seems like now. And that sucks, because Minicons used to have such a good, clear, unique identity. You used to be able to look at something and go, oh, that's a Minicon. I could tell you all about these little R2-D2 guys. You could list off so many just good, unique Minicons in Armada. And now it's just, if it's a small bot, it's a Minicon. A Micro Master's a Minicon. A Target Master's a Minicon. Soundwave's cassettes are Minicons. Half of the things that come out now could be a Minicon some way. I think I want Minicons to have a unique, clear identity. I think the deployers had the most potential of anything, but they made it too unique. I think deployers should be a unique thing of their own. I love deployers. They're really cool. Bring back the deployers and have them just be a new thing. Just have them be called deployers. Have Minicons come back in a modern line. Cyberworld's doing really good things. I don't buy it, but I window shop and I've messed with a couple figures from it. They're really cool. They tempt me. The only Transformer stuff I collect now is walkies, but Cyberworld tempts me. Minicons would fit in, I think, really well with that. They do cheap figures with a lot of interline compatibility. Big Bumblebee, like you can put different bots inside it. Minicons would be really cool in there. And they've started doing, they've started a new subline where they're doing all this Energon stuff. If it gets another year, another subline, it'd be so cool to see some Minicons. Turn the normal figures we get now in Cyberworld, maybe an index. Something just to bring Minicons back from the hellish unidentity they have now. Hell, I'll even take if they just do something with Minicons that isn't just, hey, you know, the old ones from Armada? We brought them back. And they don't have the gimmicks anymore. And we've extracted their souls. And now they're just the same as the Micromasters we used to do. Anyway, I hope Cyber World gives us Minicons. And I think we need Minicons to stay kid-focused. They're doing an $80 thing of Minicons and Red Alert. And it looks great. But I don't want it. I don't want any of this stuff anymore. I just want Minicons to be fun again. And they're not gonna be, but I could sit here and I'll cry about it in a video. I'll spend 21 minutes talking about how Minicons need to go back to being kid-focused fun little gimmick toys. Anyway, yeah, I guess that's where we'll leave it from here. Now I'm sad.